My name is Błażej, and over the course of last 12 months, I've spent over 1000 hours teaching people how to code in Java. Here are top 9 mistakes that they are making that are stopping them from progressing. And here's how you can also avoid them. Starting with the first one, which is trying to make your code as perfect as possible in the beginning. The truth is, in the beginning, you don't really know what is perfect code, how to write it, what is required to write perfect code. And also, no code is ever perfect. In the company experience, it is always going to be making your code good enough and not trying to optimize it as much as possible. Because, let's be perfectly honest, right now what is important on the market is to make code easily done and kind of fast, not as fast as possible, but try to make it as good as it doesn't really break that much, and then you can sell it off as a product. So whenever I've been coding myself or I'm leading my teams, it really doesn't matter for me that the code is picture perfect, straight out of the book, and all the computer science professors can just go ahead and praise it, right? It is about making the code work and make it pretty enough so that it's not so bad at maintaining. So the more important thing for you also when you are learning is try to, first of all, if you have an exercise, make it work, then try to see what you can optimize, what you can maybe create a new method out of, maybe make it a little bit cleaner, maybe a little bit better, but don't spend next 5 days on making sure that your super method for summing up an array of ints is purely up to date with clean code, with all the good practices. It doesn't consume too much JVM memory, etc., because it really doesn't matter in real life. Don't make your code perfect because there's no such thing as a perfection. And trust me, even during your work days, when you already get your job, you won't be required to write perfect code because such a thing doesn't exist. Don't look at LeetCode, HackerRank, or any other type of service where you can see code from very, very good people that have spent weeks or months at that, right? If you have time to do that, yeah, okay, sure, you can do it, and you can spend a month on optimizing how to find a palindrome. But realistically speaking, if you are trying to get a job and just learn how to code, don't make your code perfect because first of all, such a thing doesn't exist, and second of all, it really won't make you a better programmer, at least in the start. Second problem is not experimenting enough. Once you have written your code, it is super important to just run it, see where it breaks, see how it behaves under different behavior. Because to be perfectly honest with you, in my day-to-day work, the users will always break something, no matter how robust or how safe we make the code. The systems are so big, they are so complicated and complex, and the end users can make so many mistakes that everything will break at least once, no matter how good the code or the programmers are. That's just how software works. Also, not experimenting enough means that you don't really know how to test, how your code will behave under different conditions. This is one of the key things for you to remember. If you break your code, it's not something physical. It won't literally break, it won't blow up your PC, and it will be easier for you to then understand some errors that come up in the future. Because if you haven't experienced any error, then how do you expect to then know what has broken, how to fix this? So experimentation, trying to break your code, trying to use different libraries, different types of operations to make your code work is also something that many people are afraid to do because of the fact that it's scary to experiment. Maybe you break your code, maybe week of your work is going to be going away because you broke something, but that's where Git comes in. Create a proper Git commit and then on that, try to build your changes. If you break something, just revert to that commit. So trust me, breaking things in code is nothing to be scared about, and I will say that this is more than necessary for you to become a good programmer. Number 3, which is not coding often enough. If you take a look at your week and how you can structure your time, it is very important for you to code daily. It doesn't matter for me if it's like half an hour, or 3-hour long session. Trust me, you will move way faster by doing this on a daily basis than just spending entire weekend on just coding away and trying to remember on Saturday, hey, what did I code last week? And on Sunday, you would do actual learning, right? So it's more important to go on a day-to-day basis. Back when I was learning how to code and I tried to really learn how to do it, I would just spend my weekends on that, exactly as I have told you. And I have really got behind on trying to learn everything from the get-go and relearning everything week after week. Our brains do not work in such a way that we can just go off without repetition. Fun fact, we forget most of the things that we have learned today tomorrow. So it means that without repetition on the next day, majority of this knowledge will already be lost. So you need to keep repeating, stay in the context, because trust me, even experienced programmers, when they go back from vacation, like 2-week long vacation, they go back into work, they don't remember what the code does, they don't remember what they did, so they need this also some sort of staying in the zone and repetition to really keep track of things. For them, it's easier because they already know what they're doing, but for you, it is even more important to keep learning daily, at least sometime half an hour, to be still in the loop for that. Hey, just a quick break. If you want to avoid all those problems that I'm describing here, then head on over to the link in the description to my free group called DevLaunch on School, where we have a community of people just like you. We are hosting weekly Q&As and of course Java Core Bootcamp, where I'm going through all the issues that Java has for the basics, all the way from JDK versus JRE, all the way to REST APIs and how to properly use them. So if that's something for you, then check it out. Let me know what you think and see you there. Number 4, which is copying and pasting things from the internet without understanding. I'm not saying that copying and pasting stuff from the internet is bad. Let's be perfectly honest. Majority of the work of a programmer is going to the internet and trying to solve some problems and see whether somebody had them. That's the cruel reality of things, right? So using the internet is not a bad thing inherently. But for you, it can be very damaging, especially with ChatGPT, Claude AI, and all those chatbots that you can talk to. Why is that? Well, programming is not really getting to know what certain syntax does. It's knowing really when to use it and how to use it for a specific problem. So if you don't understand why a stream was used, why some mapping was used, or why this certain library was used by ChatGPT or any other type of coding solution that you have found on Stack Overflow or anywhere else, then you won't really be able to learn, because copying and pasting without thinking, first of all, if you are learning, you won't be learning much. Second of all, if you are already in a job, then it will mean that actually what you're doing is damaging the code base, because if you don't understand it and then you go back to it in a month because there's a bug, then it will be very, very tough for you to first of all relearn it, get to understand it then, and then try to solve it for the bug within the system. So this is going to be a lot harder than just learning on your own, because on your own, you build small applications, it's not really an issue, you can just go ahead and run it. But trust me, you really do need to understand what you're copying, because otherwise you're not learning. You're fixing some exercise that somebody has given you. And that is not the goal of learning how to code. So trust me, don't copy and paste blindly, but do it with knowing why exactly each line has been put in such order. Otherwise, try to figure it out on your own. Number 5 is not doing big projects and only doing small applications or lead code type exercises. For me, it was a big breakthrough when I have sat down with a clear project in IntelliJ when I was just learning how to code, and I had to write out an application, in this case chess. I had no clue what to do. I didn't know how to structure it. I didn't know how to properly write some classes. I didn't know what to go with. Apart from the fact that I knew how to play chess, right? That was my only basis that I tried to run this project on. So I had to really get rid of this fear of a clear page, which is something very, very common for newly coming people into programming. Because you haven't written something bigger, you don't trust yourself to build something that is not an exercise from point A to point B. And you need to build something, right? But this is what your everyday life as a programmer will look like. It will never be, please do this exercise and in, for example, log n, sort this array list. I mean, there are some very, very, very niche cases where this will be actually the reality. But to be perfectly honest with you, building applications and understanding how architecture works, how proper structure works, is going to be most beneficial for you. Even if you don't know yet Spring, Hibernate, or anything else, just with file operations, communicating with REST API, mapping out JSONs via JSON is still going to be making you able to write bigger projects. Even without those tools, with just regular JDK classes, you are able to build bigger projects. And as soon as you get over the fear of writing projects, then and only then, the doors will open for you to really build bigger ones. Because if you don't start with small ones, of your own, then you have no chance of actually writing proper code. And also, without building bigger projects, you won't be able to build your portfolio. And that is the only way, if you don't have your college degree, to really show the recruiter that you know what you're doing. So to sum it up, don't be afraid of bigger applications and only do lead code type of things if you are trying to get for an interview or learn algorithm or something like this. Because otherwise, trust me, 90% of your time should be spent on building projects for your portfolio or just an application that you would like to use, which is even better and serves both of those specific reasons. Number 6 is jumping between languages. And this one I can really understand. Because for most people, myself included, I jumped around because I didn't know exactly what to do with my time and with my life for the programming. I tried CS50, I've tried Python, I've tried C++, I've tried JavaScript, but I hated that one, still hate it today, and I will not be learning any JavaScript in a total manner because I just dislike the language. So it was easier for me, at least with that one. But a common pattern for a lot of people is getting into a programming language, getting to a certain level of, let's say, advancement, and then you're like, okay, I don't understand this is too hard, this language is not for me, so I will switch over to another language, start from the beginning, and go through those prints, loops, if statements, and very easy stuff up until you get to this specific point that was hard in other language, and it's very similar to that other language, but you still don't understand this, so you'll switch to third language, and you go on. And the sad truth is, there is no way of overcoming this obstacle without just writing out the code and getting to know this particular obstacle up until you get to another one. For me, those were arrays. I didn't understand arrays, which sounds comical at this point for me, but still, I got stuck on Python, I got stuck on C, I got stuck on Java at one point, and then I was like, okay, screw it, I'll just try to code this out and try to see what this works. And finally, I was able to overcome this up until another obstacle that I've run into, which I don't even remember what it was. But do trust me, switching between languages is something that will really stop your progress, and you will just start over in the beginning. However, of course, there is another factor to that, which is selecting your technology that you just like. And for that, if you are just writing some code in any language and you just don't feel like the feeling of it, you don't like writing front-end things, for example, I didn't, or you just don't like the back-end type of things, then of course, go ahead and switch the language, switch the technology to not get stuck. But don't use any type of hard obstacle as an excuse to go into another language and make your learning even longer than it actually is. Number 7 is not writing down what you have learned, at least in like a free text form or anything like this. Why? Well, when you are writing down what you are learning, then it means that you are understanding and repeating a little bit what you have already been going through over the day. And in the future, if you forget it, you can always just go, hey, I forgot about this. I can just go ahead, read in my notebook, and it's there. I can repeat this to myself, by myself, so that it's way easier to track your progress, see where you have gone wrong, how to fix this, and of course, getting your own type of, let's say, Wikipedia that only you can understand, but will be very useful for you moving forward, because you will see your progress, see where you are currently. So it is very important to note down what you're working on, because our brains are best used for processing data and not for storing data. So just offload your brain, because learning how to code is already hard, as well with maintaining 9 to 5, your family, your other things. So make sure that your brain is offloaded by writing down what you have learned, what are your problems for the next day, and only use your brain for processing. This way, it will be easier for you, and then you can reuse it for future learnings. Number 8 is something that I have been very guilty of, is not planning your work. If you're not planning your work, you don't know what you will be doing for the day, for the week, for the month even, then you will essentially just end up like I did for the most part, just looking through YouTube, looking through Facebook, and not really caring about what you are doing and just wasting your time away, which is not how you learn to code. You need to plan exactly what type of feature you want to build right now, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, not just, okay, I'll just go ahead and code something. Because it doesn't really work that way. You will spend some time trying to first get off, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to focus on? What exactly was the problem? And then you will essentially lose quite a lot of your time. And then it will be like 10 p.m. and you're like, okay, I'll just go to sleep. So it's very, very important to just plan out your work in a given day, maybe a given week or a given month. For example, a bigger project, a bigger application that you are trying to work on, so that you know exactly what your time is being put into. If you are wasting your time, then you will exactly be able to tell, okay, I'm wasting my time on this, I'm wasting my time on that, I should be really focusing on something else. Because without a clear goal, our monkey brains actually are not really able to tell what we'll be doing, and it's very, very hard for you to actually start working on something. So please do remember, always plan your work. When you sit down, say to yourself, I will work on this issue, I will fix this exception, I will fix this bug, I will add this feature, so that it's easier for your brain to get the resources in a proper way and start working on those as soon as you sit down in front of your computer. Number 9, last but not least, is not using the internet enough. So that's kind of contradictory to what I've said in the beginning about copying and pasting without understanding, but I've also seen people spend an entire week just sitting on one single issue that if you just Google it, it will be fixed in like 20 minutes. So it's very important to not waste your time trying to come up with a solution by yourself. Programmers don't really code everything from their head, at least until they get to a very, very high level where they can actually do this. But if you are learning, try to spend at least 30 minutes to an hour on a specific issue before going to Google. And when you get into Google, you are learning additional skill, which is finding out how to Google for things, which might sound silly, but is an actual skill that will prove handy whenever you are going into your first programming job. So spend at least 30 minutes to an hour on a problem, and then go into Google to try and solve it. Because if you spend too much time on it, then you are essentially wasting it away that you can be spending on building something else and not really just digging into it, getting frustrated and thinking that programming isn't for you. Because there are a lot of resources on the internet and you should be making use of them, and if you don't, then you're just wasting your time. And trust me, you will get annoyed as soon as you just get into the second hour of it and you will think coding isn't for you. And I've seen this multiple times of people just getting frustrated instead of just making a quick Google 30 minutes or just reaching out to me where I'm just helping them out and just saying, yeah, you forgot a semicolon here or you've put wrong input over there. So that it's way easier to solve those problems if you have a buddy to ask or just use Google. That will make your life a lot easier, but first try to understand it by your own. Otherwise, you will be just copying and pasting and you won't be learning how to code, as I've just rated it before. Those are all the most common things that I see in people whenever they are going into coding. Even somebody that I've been cooperating with for 6 months or so still can be guilty of some of those issues. And that's perfectly normal, because I was the same, and I think everybody was the same, where learning how to code is something very, very complex, and you really deserve some ovation for just trying to do this, because majority of people won't do it. So if you have some of those, try working on them, but don't be too harsh on yourself, because this is super common and a lot of people actually have the same story as you do. With that being said, thank you very much and see you in the next one.